I am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interviewed T.H. Irwin, who is the CEO of T.H. Experiences and the creator of dozens of public-facing experiences, with attendance ranging from 200 to 10,000 people. T.H. curates signature next-level experiences that are intentional and impactful. With more than a decade of experience developing, implementing, marketing, and producing high-engagement experiences, the mission of empowering and educating women is a top priority. Her signature experience includes Women for Women Today, #EveryWoman, and the Night Market. TH is also the co-founder of X Experts and the Divorce Etc. podcast, using her own divorce journey to educate and empower anyone touched by divorce with free resources and support. During this interview with TH, we discuss her journey of creating connection and finding the fun in being in other people's company. That passion for community has driven her to create experiences in her entrepreneurial life that have helped women unlock their superpower and create a safe place to connect and know they are not alone. I hope you enjoy this podcast with TH and the stories that she shares about her own life so that you can apply those lessons to your own. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs. My name is Amy Vetter, and I am here with T.H. Irwin. And T.H., do you want to give everyone a brief background on yourself before we get started?
I am happy to, and it's an extensive background. So I'm not really sure where exactly to start.
We'll just start with where you are today, and then we'll get started.
Work backwards.
Yeah.
So where I am today is, as a woman, I am a creator. And I know, Amy, when we first spoke, we talked about what our superpower word was. So I really currently, and at least in the last several years, really tap into what is my superpower to define who I am as a human being. And less about who I serve other than myself first. So I'm a creator of impactful and memorable experiences for people. I used to work for a traditional media company, bringing their products to life, giving their products a personality. And I was always in the background. And in the last several years, I had the opportunity to refresh the experiences that I had created, repossess them as my signature experiences, and really tap into engagement, intention, and creating. When people create a festival, you never forget the festival. But think about the people who built that so you could be there with your friends and the music and all of those things. So who I am today is a creator of awesome experiences. I live in northern New Jersey. I love to go to Vermont or anywhere in the mountains. It makes me a much happier person. I work out easily every day. Today I played golf. Another day I'll hike. I don't care. I just really enjoy being outside. And then for semantics, I have 3 awesome kids. I have a dog. Her name is Daisy. I have a step dog. Her name is Mooney. And I shack up with my forever man in northern New Jersey. So kind of where I am today.
Well, can't wait to get into all of that. But let's start where you began. So where did you grow up and what did your parents do for a living?
So I grew up in northern New Jersey, and what was really key about where I grew up was how far I was from New York City. So everything was measured by your distance from the city. I have a brother. He's 2 years younger than me, almost to the day. My mom, actually, I'm aging all of us right now on my side of the family. She was a teacher, and she had to stop teaching when she got pregnant. Can you imagine that today?
Yeah.
And my dad was a lawyer, a business attorney, and he worked in Manhattan. And he calculated that he spent more than a year of his life commuting in and out of New York City all those
Oh, wow.
years. So, yeah, I grew up in the suburbs of New York as far as I'm concerned. And it was great. I mean, my closest friends are my high school friends today, and I am no longer in my 20s, 30s, or 40s.
I'm right there with you. So, what kind of hobbies did you do growing up? What were the things that most interested you?
I would say growing up, it was whatever my friends were doing. I
Really?
did whatever they did. If
Okay.
they wanted to join tennis and we could get out of school at 2 o'clock, then I joined tennis. If we had to run track in order to still get out early and it wasn't tennis season, we did that. We got caught getting a ride down to the track, by the way, and then had to run like a stupid amount. And I hate running to this day. I think my favorite thing to do growing up was always to be with my friends. We just
Mhm.
had a great time. We laughed, we played, we danced, we explored, we just spent a lot of really fun time together. And if for all the younger people here, think COVID, because that's what it was like growing up in the 70s and 80s. And I mean, I used to hike with my brother. We didn't even call it a hike. We had all woods, like 40 acres of woods behind our home, maybe more. And there was a tower somewhere in the middle there. So we would just go and be lost all day. Our parents weren't looking for us. They were busy playing golf or they were with their friends. We didn't have cell phones. We were literally lost in the woods for hours. And I think it was just really like spending time with people who really make me happy.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just having this conversation. There's so many things now you think about that probably wouldn't be allowed today. Like, I was talking when you talk about that, I was talking about day camp with Capture the Flag, and you'd be like totally lost in the forest.
Right,
And
right.
now you can't even imagine kids being allowed to do
Now
something.
there are TV shows about it. We could do it, Amy. We could be lost and afraid and winning. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your ambition when you wanted to grow up? Like, what is it that you wanted to do?
I don't think I really knew. I went to Syracuse University again, great time, great friends, great parties. I love music. I love a concert. I went into originally I was an art history major and a French major because my
Okay.
grandmother used to collect art and she also commissioned art and she has a great eye for beautiful things. And so I was like, in my own head, no one invited me, by the way. In my own head, I was like, oh, well, I'll take over her art business in Canada. It's totally unrealistic all around. And the truth is, you can't just do that. You have to have an eye for it.
Uh-huh.
We discovered a lot of artists that, became huge celebrity artists and impactful in culture and everything. And I mean, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to do that too. You have to have an eye for it. And so I spent time with her, but I just was on this path. I mean, what was I going to do with French as a major? Seriously, I didn't know. So I did very well my freshman year at Syracuse. I was not an A student or anywhere near it before Syracuse. So I got straight A's, and my dad's like, great, now transfer out and go to a better school. And I said, I don't want to leave. I have great friends here. What if I just transfer to the business school? So we agreed to that. I
Okay.
was a marketing major. And then I think I really started to see how creative I was. I
Mhm.
really love to dream things up. And I'm not an artist. I can't paint. I'm tone deaf. I can't sing. I played the flute for many years, but you'd have to still put a gun to my head. I probably wouldn't be able to play it. Um, but I always had creativity about me. And I think I really started to learn that in college with these marketing case studies and, promotions and all that kind of stuff. I just really loved that. And then when I graduated college, again, aging myself, job opportunities were in the newspaper.
Mhm.
So I found in the classified section under marketing a job and I applied for it and I got it in
And
New
what
York
was that?
City,
What was that job?
marketing for a marketing research firm. And if any of you know New York or live in New York, it's now Bryant Park. When I worked there, there was one chair in the middle of a park with probably a bunch of druggies, and I would try to get out for lunch at like 10 to 12 so I could be the one sitting in that chair. Um, so I also knew that I loved to be outside. I grew up skiing. I just really like to be out.
Mhm.
So I learned about marketing research, how new products are built and tested and curated and then sold. And I wanted to be on the other side. I wanted to be on the client side of that. And when I spoke to those people, they said, you have to go to graduate school. So I did. Went to graduate school for 2 years in New York. I had great internships. During that time, I worked for Wise Foods that makes the potato chips. And I
Mhm.
got to do a sponsorship at WW World Wrestling, whatever that is, WWE. And we sponsored the chairs ringside.
Oh,
So that
wow.
was cool. And I worked for Mercedes-Benz. They didn't have anything called pre-owned cars back then. Oh my God, I'm so old. So they worked on a signature program that I got to be a part of. And that's when the term pre-owned was coined. Now, Mercedes-Benz should have trademarked it and did not. So that was really cool. So I really was now feeding my creative, I don't know, my love of just like, what do you want to do with a pre-owned car? I don't know. What could I do with that? Would that be fun? Do I want to drive it? Do I need a manual? Do I need a warranty? But it was fun to dream stuff up. So that was just, again, another stepping stone. And then I went to be interviewed at traditional consumer products companies. And it's so interesting because I really don't remember a lot of stuff. But
Uh-huh.
I remember that I interviewed at the company that produces Dove soap. And they asked me, what would you do with Dove soap over the next 5 years? I said, I wouldn't do anything. It's perfect the way it is. It's a bar of soap. Everybody loves Dove soap. I mean, have you guys looked in the supermarkets and the drugstores at Dove soap? Body washes and different pumps and different fragrances. And so I did not belong there because I wasn't a visionary for their product. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But I was hired by a large consulting firm. Arthur Andersen was the name. You
Oh.
might know Accenture, which was a spinoff.
Uh-huh.
First, it was Andersen Consulting, then they changed the name to Accenture. But Arthur Andersen was still sitting without a consulting arm when that division of the
Okay.
company happened. So I got a job with them and it was cool. I worked on New Power and I worked on Y2K with Omnicom. And I got to do a lot of really cool stuff. And it was great because my job changed every few months. I was on a different project. And at that time, I had already been married. I was pregnant with my second daughter. And I thought that they were very kind because they let me work part time. Except now in today's day, you get like 6 months maternity leave. I think I got 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And they let me cut my salary in half and work part time.
Yeah.
But I thought that that was great because then I could still work and have babies.
Mhm.
That's all that was available at that time. And then Enron hit. And if you didn't study that in college, then you should know it anyway.
We have mostly accountants on this listening to this podcast, so they're
That's right. You're a
well aware.
CPA, right?
Yeah.
So Enron hit, 85,000 people lost their jobs. I was among the first to go. And then KPMG absorbed a lot of that staff. And now today, they would never close an entire company for bad behavior from a dozen people. But an example was set, and that's that story. So I was always a scrappy person, and eBay was new. I started selling everybody's stuff in the house. I'm like, you don't use that toy, you don't wear that tie, we don't use that furniture. And I started playing with eBay, and it was great. And it was great to feel like I can make my own money.
Mhm.
And then I started selling the innards of homes before they were demoed. Doors, knobs, light fixtures, appliances, cabinetry, closet organizing, all of it. And then I started selling innards of homes that people didn't like. If they bought in my area,
Mm.
it's an affluent area. Someone bought a townhouse for $3 million. I don't like the kitchen. I don't like any of the closets. I don't like any of the bathrooms. Rip them all out. brand new. So I sold them all. So I became friends with the brokers, and then I gave them a piece, and I made some money. It was
So you
awesome.
got into this because of eBay? You found this niche?
No, because I learned how to resell
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm.
I could sell literally anything. But what that taught me looking back is I learned how to sell.
Mhm.
I learned how to brand and I learned how to think, but now I learned how to market and I learned how to promote and I learned I could sell a pencil today and tell you why it's the best pencil that you should ever have. So now looking back and talking about it in this interview, I'm seeing how my skill set was slowly building. And then
Now, was there anyone along the way that gave you advice or that you looked up to?
I always looked up to my dad.
Mhm.
He is a great listener. But no, I didn't really have a mentor. I had a great
Mhm.
boss when I worked in the market research firm. She taught me a lot. But I feel like I was always the biggest dreamer in the company I was with.
Mhm.
I was always thinking bigger than everybody else. Everybody else was like, well, but that's not the assignment. The assignment is A, B, and C. So we're not doing RST or
Yeah.
UVW, whatever. We're not going that far. We're
Yeah.
only doing this. And so, no, but I was really always building confidence. I was like, wow, I could sell that. Wow, I could
But
market
I do
this.
think, it's just an interesting kinda part to pause on because I think I notice now in my 50s when someone's young like that, a lot of times it's because 'cause they're young, that they're thinking RSTUV, like,
Right. So being naive instead of
well, but
being a visionary.
it's just that you think everything is possible, you don't realize the firing order or the sequence of things that have to
Yep.
happen, and, and you can look at those things and say, "Oh, well, that actually spawned me to do this because I hit a wall," or
Right.
so forth, but now looking back, do you see a different knowledge in that advice?
Honestly, I think you should always dream big, but you do
Mhm.
have to know the
Yeah,
basics. And me starting out in marketing research was a great foundation for everything I do today. So when I do an event and I do an experience, is it the right market? Is it the right time?
right.
Who is my audience? What do they read? What do they watch? What do they listen to? Where do they spend their money? Am I only appealing to a white woman? Is this a diverse audience topic? So I think I know that that market research experience for 4
Yeah.
years was critical in me understanding that you
Good.
need to
Yeah,
have a foundation.
yeah, mhm,
Absolutely. So
yeah,
I was I was driving around Wichita, Kansas, making sure that Snickers brand new frozen chocolate bars and ice cream were properly marketed in the freezers in the convenience stores throughout Wichita, Kansas. So something as simple as that helped me
mhm,
build the foundation for everything I do now. So I think that you should dream big,
mhm,
but you cannot let go of the importance of the right foundation and structure and approach. It doesn't mean you jump from A to Z.
right,
You can still dream about Z, just
yeah,
build towards it in the right way. I
and
think
realize it
that's a good
might not
clarification.
happen tomorrow.
Right, it
Yeah,
won't happen
right.
tomorrow, and things do take time. I mean, I'm only up to my, in this story, like, I don't know, 2011 right now in this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my career. So I will say that important things to know are be a really good listener. And that's really hard to do when you're young because you
Mhm,
do think you're a know it all, but you actually know nothing. So first listen, then share and ask questions all the time.
mhm,
Don't worry if it makes you look dumb or it makes you look young. It makes you look stronger when you ask a question. You're weak when you don't ask the question and you don't know.
mhm,
And you're kind of floating, hoping you're not going to screw something up.
right.
So listen, be present, and ask the questions. Now, ask the questions to the right people, not to the
Right.
CEO, but to your direct report. or to a mentor or Google it now. You have so many places that are safer, I'm air quoting that, to ask questions to build your knowledge base. If you don't know, there are ways to find out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, how did you get to actually developing these experiences that have led you to what you do today?
So I was divorced, which was part of my journey here,
Mhm.
and had to get back to a more traditional job, like working at an Arthur Anderson or, some incorporated.
And how long ago were you divorced?
I separated in 2008. It took 4 years for my divorce. That's a whole other
Yeah.
fun story that we can lock into. You can check out my other company for all those details, but it did wake me up.
Mhm.
I had lost touch with who I was and what's important to me, and I really became robotic. So it was good that I was being pushed to get back to a traditional job
Mhm.
because I was really a shell of a person. I was not even functioning at 20%. So when you're in a really bad, toxic relationship, it will suck everything out of you. And at this time, I had 3 kids under 8 when I separated,
Mhm.
and I was working, and I just had to get them to school. I had to get to work. I had to pick them up. I had to bring them home. I had to make sure they had food and went to bed safely, and then do it again the next day.
Right.
And that was it. That's literally all I felt I had to do because
So,
that's
how did you make the so, you're in the freedom and the dream state of creating, and now you're having to go back to a traditional job. So, how did you figure out what you wanted to do at that point?
so my dreams were diminished, especially
Mhm.
during the last 4 years of my marriage from like 2004 to 2008. I just became less and less of me.
Mhm.
I was always scrappy though on the computer. So
Mhm.
for eBay, I'd go to the outlets, I'd buy stuff that had to be returned 2 weeks to get your money back. I'd sell what I could and then drove back. So I was pretty well versed on the computers.
Mhm.
And I found this woman who started a startup called Suburban Mama. And that name, I was like, God, I love that name. I got to find this woman. And she was busy building a startup. She was a tech person. So it was a Groupon model, basically, for Bergen County, New Jersey businesses only. She made it hyper local Groupon deals and steals and
Mhm.
experiences. So I finally got her and I said, when can you meet? I'll make myself available. I met her at Starbucks. She said, I would like to do in-person events. I go, great. I'm your girl. I didn't know what I was doing, but I like a party. And I had 3 kids under 8 who I can obviously juggle with a job. So in terms of logistics and project management and time, I can figure it out. Plus I was creative. So that really helped me tap back into my creative mind.
Mhm.
And we did these mama night out events, and they were awesome. So then Groupon had burned a lot of small businesses. So we were getting pushback for Suburban Mama. She said, TH, I want you to come with me to the media company. I now have curated a list of over 30,000 females in Bergen County, and that has value. So I went with her to the publisher. And when you're in high school, I don't know about you, but I didn't know what any of my friends' parents did. Like, who cared? They had a nice house. We had a party. They could drive us places. Like, that's it. So I walked into the media company and I was introduced to the publisher, or should I say reintroduced,
Mhm.
because he and I went to high school together and he was my friend and he was 2 years older than me. And we just lost touch. So I said, I think I'm done with her and I need something new. He goes, great. I want to start an events division here. And he published a daily newspaper, a weekly newspaper, and a magazine. I said, great, I could do it. And really owning that mantra of I can do it, and also
Mhm.
the idea of saying yes before no.
Mhm.
I could have said, oh, no, no, I haven't done this. I don't know how to do this. I don't think I can do that.
Mhm.
Instead of that messaging, I said yes, and then I couldn't take it back.
Mhm.
And I had to present in front of all his department heads, and they said, good, bring her in. And it was a little hard at first because I was the owner's friend. Oh, he's bringing in another one of his friends. Great. So great. I had to prove myself, and I did. And I created 8 original events a year. and I produced 12. And he said, listen, you have all the resources. You have marketing, graphic design, sales, legal, finance, everything. But you are the only one on the events team. So I did. I just literally did it all and had my kids to and from school. And that was my zone of genius. And that's how I landed where I am today. I had a little rest during COVID where I started. That was my first experience as an entrepreneur. And now I've refreshed two of my favorite experiences from when I worked at the media company, which was subsequently bought by USA Today. And all of my local events stopped, and I scaled one of my events across the country in 9 cities over 3 years.
When you say you found your zone of genius, what did that feel like? Like, why was that different than anything else you had done?
I felt like I was arriving. I really don't know exactly how to explain it. But
Mhm.
also kind of how you said in your TED Talk, how you had this transition moment.
Mhm.
Wait, do I want to be doing this for 35 years, or you said, or 32 years, something?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't really stop and think that, but something went off in my head that this was like a great challenge. It filled me up with so much excitement that
Mhm.
I had to jump on it, had to stay with it. And I just really rode that wave. I didn't know what was ahead of me, and he gave me creative freedom.
Yeah.
Don't lose money, TH. Just don't lose money, and you can try whatever you want. I made
Yeah.
a lot of money on some events. Some events were a total bust,
Mhm.
and I had to be humbled. Like, no one came to one of my events, and I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
But then I learned I can't guarantee who shows up for anything ever, and neither can anyone else. So if you, all of you out there, if anyone promises you, we guarantee, they are lying. It's just like we guarantee that all your wrinkles will be gone when you use this one, moisturizer, or if you
Yeah.
just don't eat gluten, you'll drop 100 pounds, or
Yeah.
whatever sounds too good to be true. Just know it's too good to be true.
Exactly. So, another thing that you said in that story, which I think a lot of people struggle with, and it may be for different reasons, but is proving yourself. And there's typically a process to doing it because it's not telling everyone how great you are
No,
when you walk in the door. And I think it goes back to some of the things you were saying before, but I wanted to just see if this connected of what your process was at the time to gain their respect and not feel like the friend of the owner.
I started to care less about what people thought.
Mhm.
It mattered to me because I wanted to be respected, but I am a very kind person. I am very respectful, and I'm very aware that I didn't want to step on toes.
Mhm.
So I'm all about asking permission for things, even to share a remark or feedback. And I actually do that with my kids too. It's like a really good tip, by the way.
Mhm.
Permission to speak, because you want to make sure that your audience is going to listen to you and that they're in a space to listen to you.
Mhm.
So that was kind of a really big thing. I know that as soon as I knew I didn't have to be married to my husband anymore, I realized that I am a good mom, that I am capable of so much more than I was given credit for, that I am so much more attractive than I was told. All of the things. I was in a marriage with a lot of very, very negative messaging. And uncovering that, working with my therapist, like you said, the first thing you did was call your therapist. Working with a really great therapist to help me decipher noise versus fact in my marriage also helped me understand what's noise versus fact and what I believed in myself.
Mhm.
We all walk around with negative messaging. Oh my God, my ass is huge. Oh my God, my hair looks terrible. Those wrinkles, my neck. Oh my God. That's all stuff we put on ourselves. We do that to ourselves. So that was a journey for me to understand that there's nothing actually wrong with me at all.
Mhm.
And that is really when the journey of self acceptance and confidence started to grow for me. And then I got this opportunity to work and build a new revenue stream for a multi-million-dollar company. I mean, who the hell am I? What the hell do I know? But I was trusting my gut that I could do this. And I did have a therapist helping me, but
Mhm.
I was finally at a place where I had unraveled most of the damage done during my marriage. And then I had to undo the damage that I had self-inflicted upon myself.
Mhm.
And as you peel, a lot of people talk about peeling the onion. And I really did peel the onion and felt like I really like this. And if I really like it, then I can do it. I'm not
Mhm.
afraid to learn. I want to collaborate. I am not a know it all. So when I talk about my success proudly, it's not because I think I'm the best freaking, experience creator in the world. It's because I have created my own best experiences that you can show up for if you want to. So
Mhm.
building confidence and building, drive and validating yourself is because you're talking to people and you're putting yourself in a room where you're willing to receive feedback and when someone's being a jerk and when someone is actually there to help elevate both of you. So if
Mhm.
you put it out there, so when I worked at this company, right, all these people have been selling newspaper ads and everything forever. I would say to them, what worked for you?
Yeah, asking questions.
I'm not coming in and saying I know how to sell a newspaper
Mhm.
ad.
Mhm.
What are these people? What events have they done that haven't worked for them in the past? Get all of your information. That goes back to market research. Get
Mhm.
all your information first and become friends with the people based on who they are, which also ties into my superpower question to you. Connect with people in a real way,
Yeah.
and then they will support you, but you have to support them too.
I don't want us to go too far into detail, but I do think it's an important, like, observation in your life, and I think it happens to many people where you grew up in a very supportive friendships, circles, sounds like family
Yeah.
was supportive, but then you end up in a marriage, and that can be at work that
Any
you end
relation.
up like, there can be certain relationships that you don't realize how it's happened, but that becomes a belief system in your head, like you said, and
Yep.
it's taken years for you to unravel it. Why do you think that that happened in your life, that, when you knew what it was like to be supported, and have community and connection, what do you think changed, or where did you miss it if you look back?
I think I never really thought too much about what my future looked like. Just
Mhm.
thought it was gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Thought it was gonna be great. Wherever, whatever,
Uh-huh.
just take me down the path. Like, I'll just do what I'm supposed to do. Okay,
Mhm.
so I also say the word supposed in air quotes here. I finished college, right? 22 years old. What do you do next? You gotta find a guy.
Mhm.
You gotta find a guy before you find a job. But I found the job before the guy.
Mhm.
And I met a guy, and he listened to me, and he was nice to me, and he had a good job, and he was gonna make a lot of money. He was in finance. So, all those things like, is he gonna be able to support a family? At the time, was he Jewish? Does that matter? And so I just kinda, like, went along the road. Like, the next
Mhm.
thing you do is after you find the guy is you marry the guy.
Mhm.
So I didn't have a strong voice for self-advocating.
Mhm.
So I was in a supportive home, but I didn't self-advocate. I never spoke up and said, "That doesn't work for me."
Well, and you even said you picked other people's hobbies. So,
That's
like,
right.
what made everybody else happy? You just
That's
wanted to
right.
be part
I
of the
did what
group.
I was told. Because
Yeah.
when we grew up, Amy, would we ever challenge our parents?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You never challenge your parents. They said, "You're gonna look, you may all hear what I'm gonna say and be like, 'You're a spoiled brat,' which is fine." But my parents were golfers, and they
Mhm.
said, "You better learn how to hit a golf ball and play tennis, or
Mhm.
you're not gonna be able to socialize in your adult life."
Mhm.
So I was forced to do those things.
Right.
That's not how I wanted to spend my time. I wanted to sit on a beach with my friends and have a great day.
Yeah.
So I did what I was told, and I did
Mhm.
what I thought I was supposed to be doing
Mhm.
because you didn't wanna fail and you didn't wanna disappoint.
Mhm.
So then I found like what I thought was the right guy. And now growing up, yes, I had a supportive home, but there were certain things. You had to look a certain way, your hair had to be a certain way,
Mhm.
you had to get certain grades, you had to speak a certain way, you had to act like a lady.
Mhm.
And we're all going back to another generation. And now I still think those things are important, and I've taught my kids this, but not in the same I don't have the
Yeah.
same delivery.
Right. Mhm.
It's not that you're not fabulous the way you are. Back then, it's like you're really not fabulous the way
Right,
you are with that
exactly.
hair and,
Yeah.
that body and that outfit. Like you're just
Yeah.
really subpar.
Yeah.
You're not looking and acting a certain way. And if any of you haven't had a chance to watch Brooke Shields' documentary, did you watch that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
And I'm reading her book. I mean, talk about being substandard. Substandard for who? But
Yeah.
we wanted to please our parents. I
Yeah.
wanted to please my parents.
Mhm.
And so I married somebody who continued that messaging, but in
Okay.
a really toxic way, not in a healthy way, not in a helpful way.
Mhm.
Um, I was married to somebody who said to me, so I was pregnant with my first daughter, and I worked out all the time like I
Mhm.
always did, and I ate really carefully, and I gained 35 pounds. I didn't know what that was gonna be like, and then it was kinda hard for me to lose the weight. I was 29, but
Yeah.
hard for me to lose the weight, like, I
Like
wasn't gonna turn around 10 days later and be
yeah.
size 2. But I felt like it was taking too long because the messaging to me was, "You're not trying hard enough to lose the baby weight." So what does that mean? You don't look good.
Mhm.
You're not good enough because
Mhm.
you don't look great.
Right.
And I'm not really interested because you're kinda turning me off.
Mhm.
And get your shit together, lady. Work, lose the weight, have the new baby, and then that kind of manifested into something really big and toxic. You can imagine after 3 kids and having lost, my job at Enron, I mean,
Mhm.
because of Enron.
Right.
And so I was constantly the negative messaging was so pronounced that I only remember 2 good things in 13 years of marriage.
Mhm.
I created a cookbook for Gilda's Club when he told me he was proud of me. That's the only time he ever said anything like that to me. By the way, while we were married, I went to graduate school. I finished graduate school. I got a new job and I kicked ass at it. And I was raising kids.
Were you as good at that age to be able to say you are successful?
No.
Yeah.
That's when the negative messaging
Mhm.
started taking over all
Mhm.
of my thinking. And
Mhm.
so I was not confident, and I believed the words that were told to me because it's like any ad we see, right? You see it once, you're like, "Oh, that's interesting." You see it twice, you're like, "Maybe I'll click on it." Third time, you're like, "Okay, well, they're giving me a coupon." Fourth one, I definitely have a problem with my feet. I have to have these, like, sole-free sneakers, and all of a sudden, you think you own a problem that you never owned.
Right.
But that's the kind of gaslighting that was in my marriage, and that is what a lot of those ads do, by the way, everybody, is they fully gaslight you,
Yeah.
thinking your liver needs a cleansing, you need better sneakers, you have to have this cream because your skin looks like crap. So,
Yeah.
I was in a marriage like that. It was emotional abuse, emotional distress, but I believed it, so I owned it, and I kept it inside because I believed it. And so really unraveling truth versus noise.
Mhm.
Still, my divorce was 4 years, but I was able to finally take away the power that I gave him
Yeah.
that he didn't even know he had over me.
Right.
I allowed it. I literally
Yeah.
served it to him on a platter.
Yeah.
And finally I was like, "You know what? What am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing?" So
So, is there anything if those thoughts come in your head, is there something you say to yourself? Is there something you do to reverse that negative
So they
programming?
don't really come in my head anymore because my relationship with him is business. I make
Mhm.
an agenda. I have a clear objective. And
Mhm.
if I can't, at the very beginning, for many years, I couldn't speak with him on the phone because just the sound of his voice,
Would
the
trigger.
energy of
Yeah,
him
yeah, yeah.
was super triggering for me.
Mhm.
So I sent emails that were literally like a business plan. Like,
Mhm.
we have a meeting agenda. I need you to answer A, B, and C. And leave it without any emotion. So I'm very well trained now to handle that in that way.
But to be able to be so open about what your successes are, what you're good at. How did you come over that chasm? Because I think a lot of
Honestly,
people struggle with that, right?
having the opportunity to talk to people about it.
Mhm.
In 2020, there was new ownership of USA Today, and I left. But not knowing it was leading into a time of COVID and pandemic where I got stimulus checks, unlimited health insurance, unemployment, it was a great time to start a business. My
Mhm.
best friend and I separated from our husbands at the exact same time because of their infidelity and covering for one another. We're like, God, there are no resources out there to help us. And is thrilled. It's definitely the best day of my life, the day I found out that I didn't have to be married to my husband anymore. But I still had 3 kids under 8, and I had to navigate a divorce process.
Mhm.
So I wasn't in a position to help anybody, but my best friend and I said we have to build something sometime. And in 2020, we decided to do that. We created Ex Experts and the Divorce Etc. podcast. And my first few episodes on that show, you'll hear that I'm very timid. I spend time thinking before I speak. I'm very calculated and careful in what I say. Even the tone of my voice doesn't have it was pretty monotone. Now mine is more vibrant and alive. And I
Yeah.
think really talking about it, and Jessica and I interviewed over 300 people, and we were interviewed on almost 100 shows. So the more time I was able to tell my story and really talk through it, I mean, I felt like a lot of those times were therapy sessions, to be honest with you, but I was like, holy crap, I just realized this. I didn't even
Mhm.
realize this before. So the more you talk about it, the more you talk through it, the more you speak in a safe space, the more you realize, holy crap, you are freaking awesome.
Mhm.
The other thing is that I do at times when I am struggling is I do journal. Now,
Mhm.
journaling doesn't mean you take an open notebook with a ton of empty pages and lines in it. I love the 5-minute journal. It has a great quote to start your day. It asks you for the 3 things that would make today great. It asks you for an affirmation, and it had one other question. And then you go through your day, and I leave it next to my bed. And before you go to bed at night, you write the 3 things that made today great and the one thing that could have been done differently. And I do remember that my son was visiting. My son was home because he was away at boarding school. And I had written in my nighttime, what could have been better is that my son was home all day and I didn't spend time with him.
Mhm.
So it makes you accountable for those things. Now, I never said it out loud.
Right.
No one said, hey, Amy, what's the one thing you regretted today? No one's checking in with you on that.
Right.
And I felt like I did need to be checked in with. And the next day I said to my son, I'm like, Jay, what do you want to do today? And made a point of that. So I really like journaling that prompts me.
Mhm.
I don't even know where to begin. It's like, how was your day? I don't know. How are you doing? I don't know when. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when? How am
Yeah.
I doing in this moment? I can answer that question.
Right.
How was my breakfast? It was pretty good.
Well, and even your point about your son, had you not journaled, that would have been sitting inside of you, but
That's
you got
exactly
it
what
out, just because and then if you had kept it inside of you, it would have been
it
eating
would
at
have
you, you might have been
festered.
questioning it and how
Right.
he feels and instead of taking action. Right.
So that also really helps you with undoing the negative messages.
Mhm.
You go back and you read what you wrote, and those points help point out good things. So many times in our day, you're like, oh, I didn't get to do this. I didn't get to do that. I was late for carpool. I screwed this up at work. I got in a fight with somebody. And it helps highlight, like, yes, there are probably things in your day that you would have liked to have had done differently. But let's also highlight the good things in your day. You slept, you got a few minutes to have a quiet cup of coffee, you got your workout in, whatever. I mean, in these
Yeah.
days, like I had a good poop. Like, I don't know, whatever. It's all good.
Yeah.
All good. And the more you can balance out the positive and negative messaging, which I think the 5-minute journal really helps you do. And there's something else to be said for taking a pencil to a paper and writing it down, not typing it on your phone, not voice messaging it into your phone, literally taking a minute to put the words on paper and write it down slows everything down. And then you can go back and look at it and either say, you know what, I do want to go back and do this differently, or I
Mm-hmm.
want to take responsibility. You know what, Jason, I'm sorry I didn't get to spend time with you yesterday, but today I really want to spend time.
Right.
So those are the things to help unravel the negative messaging, build your confidence, learn how to tell your story,
Mm-hmm.
and own who you are in the best way. Glorify the good. You don't have to amplify the bad all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So today, you've taken all these things and are creating your own experiences. So you want to share with the audience what you're doing today?
Yes. So I've taken my favorite experiences and refreshed them for today. So one of my signature series was called Women for Women Today because there were very few experiences that were focused on women back then. And so I wanted to create a platform where women could be celebrated, kind of like this journal, right?
Mhm.
And also having other women there who could act like a mentor, like Amy is for you guys listening on the show. She's guiding you, she's giving you thoughts to think about and resonating with you at the same time. And so I wanted to do that in person. I know in person, you have different energy.
Mhm.
You have meaningful connections like you and I have only met on Zoom, but if you and I met in person, we'd hug, we'd laugh, we'd I don't know, it would be next level. So the experiences I create are intentionally next level.
Mhm.
Connecting on who you are, connecting on your superpower word, and leaving yourself open for more. So everything from Women for Women Today, where you empower, connect, inspire, learn, or my in-person night market events, which are festivals that will have you dancing in the streets for 5 hours. I promise you, eating, drinking, dancing, having fun. That's what we need in our lives, are more experiences in person. They all take place in Northern New Jersey. So if any of you are in the area, check out th-experiences with an S at the end.com.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to end with just a couple rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So pick a category: family and friends, money, spiritual, or health.
Spiritual.
Okay. Things or actions I don't have that I want spiritually.
I am not sure if it's spiritual, but I think it belongs in this category. So you talked, I think, in your TED Talk a little bit about slowing down
Mhm.
with yoga, and I literally wrote it down. You were afraid to clear your mind. Yoga is not for a type A personality. So clearly, everybody, I am a type A, and I have done yoga and I do meditate before I go to sleep at night. And that has been super challenging for me. I
Mhm.
climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2012. I trained, I worked in my hiking boots, I trained with rocks in my backpack. And the truth of the matter is, the hardest part of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro has nothing to do with how slowly you have to walk or how much you have on your back. It was all mental. I slept in a tent by myself, part of a group, but by myself for 11 nights on a mountain in Africa with animals around me. Physical challenges, bring it on. I will train, I will fight, I will have the best equipment to make it. But I never stopped to think about how that would affect me emotionally. And that
Mhm.
journal is hard for me to read, but I did journal every day on that climb. And the climb was really for me to be comfortable being alone, be
Mhm.
comfortable in the quiet. And when you climb a mountain that's over 19,000 feet, you are taking like painfully slow steps. Heel toe, heel toe. They call it pole pole. One pole, one pole. I'm like, we
Mhm.
have a whole open field. Why do
Yeah.
I have to walk slowly? Because you do. And that was really hard. So I am bringing that back into my life.
Mhm.
The events are fast paced. It's high adrenaline. It's exciting to meet new people, but I also need to balance that out with slowing down. So I do yoga in a place called Immerse where there are no mirrors and the walls are covered in LED screens that bring you to the beach or to the mountains or
Oh, wow.
to the sunset or the moon. And I literally would love to sit in there with open gym time. So that spiritually is what I do is I make sure that I have a certain number of meditations in my week. And I walk slowly sometimes with my dog. 'Cause, she stops every 2 seconds to pee. So not everything in my life is fast paced. So I think spiritually it's slowing down. I have, for me, mastered the art of being present.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always easy for me. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And maybe this answers so things or actions I do have that I want to keep.
Always be present.
Mhm.
I have had health issues that have come my way, and
Mhm.
during that time was also the time that I met my forever man, and those are the best years of my life, and
Mhm.
I've never been sicker in my life,
Yeah.
but those are the happiest times in my life, and both can exist at the same time.
Yeah.
So I need to have laughter in my life forever. I need to
Mhm.
laugh every single day. I need to be surrounded by joy. Now, I create my own joy, which I then create for all of you with these experiences. So when I go for a walk, I'm literally taking pictures of a flower or
Mhm.
I'm recording a waterfall so I can have that peaceful sound. So that's being part of present and joy.
Mhm.
And I think that those are the biggest things, but I also like money, by the way. And
Yeah.
so I think we talked about that. Ex-experts in divorce, etc., brought me a ton of joy. Podcast has over 250,000 plays. It's fabulous. Made no money. So, I mean, it's great that have the ability to create these experiences, which bring me a ton of joy for myself first, because I learned so much from all these women, from meeting new people, from being out in the world, but also brings me money, which I need to have
Yeah.
also in my life. And so unapologetically, right, Amy? Like,
Yeah.
we need money. Like, why are we embarrassed to say that? I need money and I know how to get it now. Being 54 years old and having gone through what I've gone through, this is what I need in my life.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and being so vulnerable today. It always helps our listeners. Is there anything that you didn't get to say or you want to leave people with before we end today?
I want to challenge all of you to think about what your superpower word is. And it cannot be mother, organizer, it can't have anything to do with who you serve, has to do with what you do for yourself. So I create because it fills my cup. As now you've highlighted for me as I've gone through my journey, I've always been a creator, but now I own it.
Mhm.
Amy, what did I ask you was what did you say was your superpower word? Do you remember?
No, I can't remember. But I would say it is my purpose. I mean, and I know you want one word, but, when I see people learn or, gain something from the work that I do, that fills me up for sure.
So that fills you up. And I'm going to take it just a little further because that means that you yourself are curious.
Yes.
You want to learn, which is why you're happy teaching others.
Mhm.
So I would say being curious, being interested, that is what sparks where you have landed now. I mean, look, you would never have gotten into yoga. You wouldn't have disrupted your career path if you weren't curious and interested in other things. So I challenge you all to think really hard about what that word is and own it and love it and protect it. I'm sure I was not aware I was a creator when in my 20s, but I love that I'm a creator now.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing today, and I appreciate it, and I'm excited for our audience to hear this interview.
Thank you, Amy, so much. And it was great to see you again.
Great to see you too. And now for my mindful moments with this interview with T.H. Irwin. I loved that she pushed me and she created her own, and that was her word, creator, of her superpower word. I think it's hard a lot of times to put what you try to get out into the world as one word. And it's important to kind of step back and think about what is your superpower, what is your unique gift, and also to define that for yourself and not just look away from it and think that what is unique about me or self-doubting, that we all have that superpower inside of us. It's just whether we're willing to unlock what that is and do the work to uncover that for yourself. We came up with a word during the podcast, but probably through my own self-reflection, journaling, things that we talked about on this podcast. I could probably go deeper into doing that as well and challenge myself to do that too. So her journey was very interesting and I would say a lot of people on this podcast have been shifted by the people around them as far as where they ended up going in their life. That's why I love to start with what did you do when you grew up and what was important to you, because it's always interesting to see how that zigzag, that maze works in someone's life and how it connects to what they do today. And she really was going with the flow of wanting to be where her friends were, wanting to connect. And she did have that creative side of, picking an art major, French, and then going into marketing that she talked about. But all of these were, in essence, a creative field. She just hadn't honed in on what her expertise was going to be in that. And I think also that's very important. And I've got, children that are in their 20s, and, I've reflected on this with them as well. It's sometimes we don't give credit to those initial jobs that we have and how important they are in those building blocks of our experience. Whether we loved them or didn't love them, it put us on a path of really understanding what we're really good at. We might have not realized it then, but you can see in the experiences that she's had in her life, that experience of being part of that market research firm initially was so important and really what shifted her path going into, marketing new products. But without that market research experience, she would have never known to go into that space. And then learning how to market, learning how to really understand what's important to another person really went into so many facets of her life, as far as understanding from an entrepreneur perspective, of really understanding that you have the right services and products to sell, whether you're working inside of a company, doing that research, having that grounding, and asking the right questions to make sure that you're messaging things in the right way that's going to appeal to the people that you are trying to target. And sometimes even our target might be incorrect once we start looking into things, that it's actually something else. And being okay to pivot when we realize those things. So we talked about a lot of stories, but one of them was really getting into, she was a dreamer. She had all these connections and community and family and a father that listened to her. But she did go through this journey of a relationship or marriage that was very hard on her internally and how she viewed herself, and really trying to get back afterward her self-worth and making sure those negative messages were not going on in her mind, and doing the work to do that. A lot of times we fall into these patterns without even realizing it, of how someone else is actually affecting our energy, because it's part of our pattern, it's a part of our life, it's a part of our relationships, but we don't necessarily take action on it. And that action is really about ourselves and understanding what is okay in our life, what is not okay in our life, and knowing what our self-worth is and having the confidence to say it. And as you can see now from the work that she's done, and she talked about a lot of the tools that she did, one of them being therapy, which is so important to have that third party that doesn't have skin in the game, that can be that outside perspective for you. But also when she talked about journaling and really learning how to be alone and present with her mind. These are all things that when we're younger, a lot of times we're running away from instead of doing that reflection. And if we're lucky enough to learn that when we're younger and take it into our adulthood, it can really help us in so many ways. But you're never too late to learn these lessons and to be able to pivot over time, because it's these little changes over time that make the big change. That when we're making those little changes, a lot of times we don't even realize why and what the bigger outcome is. We're just going on the journey and the present of what is something that could just make me feel 5% better, 10% better. And just enabling these little habits over time that will eventually shift the way that we think, make ourselves feel better internally, and especially when we look back, give ourselves gratitude for going through the process. I want to thank you so much for subscribing to this podcast and being a listener of this podcast. It's so important in order to keep it growing. We've actually been in existence now since 2019, and this is our 160th episode. So many episodes still to go, but without your support and continuous listening, we wouldn't be where we are today. So I appreciate you for supporting us all the way. And with that, I just want you to remember that the energy that we create internally is contagious. And so when we make these small changes, just look at the little impacts over time that really make a big difference. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.